Hello students, Assalamu alaikum. In today's A2-Level Computer Science class, we are going to discuss two topics. First is interrupt and the second one is fetch and execute cycle. Interrupt and fetch and execute cycle both are interrelated with each other and they both have been given in your book, chapter number 4. So let's start our lesson. What is an interrupt? Let's see the definition. Interrupt is actually a signal which is sent from any hardware or software to take the time of the CPU. The example of the interrupt might be printer is out of paper or printer is out of toner, or for example, um, a software has crashed. You run any software and any of the software file has been deleted because of any reason, or there might be um, a timer signal which requires to execute some program. A number of different examples of interrupts have been given in your book. Let's see that part. For example, timing signal, input output processes, a disk drive is ready to receive more data. For example, hardware fault, a device is malfunctioning, an error has occurred such as paper jam in a paper. For example, user interaction, you have pressed, for example, control alter break to break any process. The user has pressed key to interrupt the current process. Similarly, any software error or um, a process has been completed. For example, uh, you have asked you have copied something from one drive to another drive, and it is in the process of copying and the process has been completed. So in that case also a signal will be sent to the processor that the copy process has been completed. So there might be a number of instances of interrupt. So in simple words, interrupt is a signal which is sent from any of the softwares or any of the hardware. How interrupts are handled, it depends on the priority and the algorithm which is being used by the CPU, right? Let's see how it is handled. First, we see the concept of ISR. ISR is the program or the routine which is required to handle any particular or any specific interrupt. So, according to the interrupt, ISR is loaded by the CPU, and according to the instruction, that interrupt is handled. So, ISR is interrupt service routine. Then come to the process which takes place when any interrupt occurs. For example, CPU is in process of executing any of the programs. A signal comes from any of the hardware or software. Then signals comes from hardware or software. Then an interrupt register value is changed. There is a register which keeps tracks of the status of the interrupt. If the interrupt is there, then the value of that register is changed. Then it is decided that the interrupt is to be given CPU time or not. If it is in high priority, then CPU time will be given. Otherwise, if the interrupt is of low priority, then it will be ignored. For example, if it is decided that CPU time is to be given to the interrupt, then what will happen? The current status of the CPU and its register will be stored somewhere in the registers, and ISR will be loaded. ISR, I have told you, ISR is the routine or the program which is used to handle any of the any specific interrupt. Then status of the previously executing program, I have told you, that is restored if the interrupt has been handled, interrupt has been fulfilled. Then status of the interrupt register is also changed to initial state that there is no interrupt now. After this, if you have understood the concept of interrupt, now let's see what is happening in fetch and execute cycle. If you have studied computer science in previous class also, that is your O level, You must have seen this diagram. This is the same diagram which is given in your O-level book also. So let's see it. What it is saying. For example, first of all, try to understand what is fetch and an execute cycle. It is a cycle which is continuously taking place by the CPU to process any instructions. So, for example, the process is started. It checks, CPU checks if there is any instruction. If there is any instruction of the program, which is always there, all the time CPU is doing something. Then the program counter, this is a register, contains the address of the memory location of the next instruction. Mind it, this is the next instruction which is to be executed. Currently executing instruction is kept in MAR. So from program counter, the address of the instruction is transferred to MAR. MAR stands for memory address register. Then in next step, from MAR, MAR is the address. From this address, the data is fetched and it is kept in the MDR. MDR is also a temporary register which is called memory data register, right? And here the data is kept for some time, and from this register the data is transferred to CIR. CIR is the register which is used to keep the data which is uh, in the process of execution. The next is the value of PC, the program counter is incremented, right, is changed. So because PC is responsible, program counter register is responsible to keep the address of the next instruction to be executed, right? So that this value is changed. So this is not necessary that this is changed at this step. It can be changed uh, afterward or before this step also. So in different books you will see this step at different places. Then after this, the instruction is finally decoded and then executed by sending out signals or control signals by control bus to the different part of the computer system. Then after this step, computer checks whether there is any interrupt there or not. If there is any interrupt, then it is handled by loading the ISR as I have told you. And after handling it, it again check if there is any instructions to be decoded or not. If there is no interrupt, then it will go back and start the process from here, right? So this is how computer fetch and execute cycle taking place. After this, let's elaborate this part. Then for example, if there is any interrupt to be handled, so this has been given in your book, elaborated in your book in this diagram. Let's see what it is saying. This diagram has been divided into three parts: fetch stage, execute stage, and the interrupt handling stage. So for example, the program is started and the instruction is fetched from the memory. This is the fetch state, and then it is sent for execution. It is decoded and executed, and then it comes to the end of the program. If the program is ended, then it is ending here, the process is ending here. If no, then it will check for the interrupt. If the interrupt is there, then interrupt enabled and interrupt priority checked. It is checked whether the interrupt is to be given some priority or not. If it is decided that priority is to be given to the interrupt, then the currently executing program is suspended and its status is stored in the registers. Then ISR routine is called and interrupt is handled. Then after handling this interrupt, it will come back here and the next instruction is fetched and it is decoded, and then if the end of the program is there, then process is ended. Otherwise, again it is checked whether there is any interrupt or not. If there is no interrupt, then interrupts are disabled because computer is in the process of fetching the next instruction. So this is how it is going on. It is explained that how interrupts and fetch and executed cycle, they are interrelated with each other. Minded interrupt is something which is very important, and because of this, multi-programming is possible. Your CPU time is divided among a number of programs or processes. So here we will end this short lesson, and inshallah in next class we will discuss the next topic. In today's class we have discussed the concept of interrupts, and we have seen that a number of uh, interrupts examples, right? We have seen that interrupt is a signal which is sent from any input and output device uh, to get the attention of CPU. And right after this we discuss about the interrupt handling process, and we have seen that there is a ISR. This is the routine which is for any specific interrupt, so that the requirement of that particular interrupt is fulfilled. Then we have seen there is an interrupt a register. Then after this we have seen fetch and execute cycle. The whole process we have seen, and this we have elaborated in another diagram which is given in your book. So this is the end of this lesson here. Inshallah we will discuss the next topic in next class. Thank you very much.